Welcome to the Book of Lamentations. The Book of Lamentations is comprised of 5 separate poems. The genre is a communal lament. And this is a composition which, one, by its verbal content, indicates that it's a complaint about some perceived calamity, physical, cultural, which either had befallen or was about to befall a community. Second, it was composed to express both sorrow and grief. And it was composed to appeal to God for deliverance. Well, as the genre label indicates, the Book of Lamentations was composed to be used by or on behalf of a community. And the literary style was akin to a funeral dirge. So, the accompaniment and the performance of a lament was funereal and, characterized by tearing one's clothing, keening, laying on the ground, rolling in dust, sitting in ashes. Here's a 21st century example of keening a dirge. The mourners Kurd. They live in North Iraq and southeastern Turkey. To give you an idea.
Neler manda kade vatanda çınakti balay koldi.
Boş boşuna kaldı.
Neler cüceyi viştini aşmey marre aymırray. Neler ne cemilere gelmi darsana ceza bir no.
The chronicler reports that Jeremiah was accompanied by keeners, both male and female singers, who speak in their dirges about Josiah to this day. 2 Chronicles 35. Amos speaks of those who know mourning song, who are summoned to join the wailing. Amos chapter 5. So, in the face of an impending disaster, Jeremiah draws from funereal traditions and he charges the people to call for the mourning women, mekoninot, to hurry and lead the people in wailing. Chapter 9, verse 17. It's interesting that in parallelism, these keeners, these wailers, are said to be chachmot, skilled. In the same composition, apparently because of the magnitude of the anticipated funeral for Jerusalem, the keeners are instructed to increase their corps. They're charged to teach your daughters wailing and each her neighbor a dirge. Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 20. Much like the Sumero-Akkadian laments, so the Hebrew laments, they became attached to public lamentation service. These Hebrew laments that deal with the fall of Jerusalem came to be recited on the anniversary of the occasion, the 9th of Ab. The book of Joel, chapter 2, gives a graphic portrayal of the conduct of a national lament. So you've got the priests dressed in lament garb, and they would call the leaders and the people to the temple for a convocation, and there they would utter a lament to the Lord between the porch and the altar. Obviously, after the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple, for at least the next 8 or 9 decades, that was not going to be the location of this, I was going to call it a celebration, but commemoration. We have examples of communal laments in the Psalter. Psalm 44, 60, Psalm 74, 79, 80. So, The theme of the Book of Lamentations is this deep sadness and woe that sin has brought, as evidenced by the fall of the monarchy and the destruction of the temple. I mean, Zion theology has been gutted. A quick comment about authorship and date. There's no attribution in the Hebrew manuscript of the book or in other canonical books referring back to the Book of Lamentations, so in one respect it's a non-issue. However, there is an early tradition that associates the Book of Lamentations with the prophet Jeremiah. For example, the Septuagint begins with a direct claim. It reads, "And it happened after Israel was taken captive and Jerusalem was laid waste, that Jeremiah sat weeping and gave this lament over Jerusalem, and said, how the city sat alone, she who was full of people," and goes right on into the text that you have in verse 1. So the Septuagint seems to be translating a Hebrew text that had that extra verse at the beginning. And the Septuagint places Lamentations following Jeremiah and Baruch, but before the epistle to Jeremiah. The Targum Yonatan also associates Lamentations with Jeremiah. But as I mentioned, the Masoretic text places Lamentations in the Megillot section of the Ketuvim, the writings. And I think the internal evidence suggests the date of composition was shortly after the fall of Jerusalem in 586. Well, next session, we'll think about the structure and the content of the Book of Lamentations. See you in a bit.